Squiggles, indisputably the best biscuit to come out of New Zealand, perhaps the world. A vanilla biscuit base topped with a honeycomb buttercream, sprinkled with Hokey Pokey, dipped in chocolate and then squiggled, once again with chocolate. Today, I'm going to teach you how to make your own. And they'll be gluten-free, of course. So without further ado, let's start with the Hokey Pokey. Hokey Pokey and honeycomb are the same thing, but I was brought up to say Hokey Pokey. Super easy to make, but the process is very quick and you do have to be a little bit particular on the time. So we'll start by preparing a piece of parchment paper. We'll start by preparing a piece of parchment paper, baking paper, and then getting all the ingredients to go. You'll also need a saucepan.
Place a pot on the stove but don't turn it on yet, and get your piece of parchment paper ready. Into the pot add 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. You'll notice I'm going to go in twice. That's because I lost my tablespoon measuring spoon, so I'm using the half tablespoon. And then add 1 tablespoon of caster sugar. And 1 tablespoon of golden syrup. Then we're just going to gently mix that together and turn our stove onto a medium-high heat. Once it's all combined, we're just going to sit it on the stove and let it bubble. Once it starts to boil, leave it for 60 seconds and then take it off the heat immediately. You'll notice I've got my baking soda ready to go. After the 60 seconds, pour the half teaspoon of baking soda in and you'll notice that it starts to change colour and shape. You want to stir quickly because it becomes really sticky. Once everything's mixed together and there's no lumps of baking soda left, you want to pour it onto the parchment paper. Hokey Pokey starts to harden really quickly, so do this as quickly as possible. Then we want to put the Hokey Pokey in the freezer while we move on to the biscuit. Start with 70 grams of softened butter. And add 1/4 cup of caster sugar. Blend these until light and fluffy. Add 1 tablespoon of milk and mix again. Sift in 1 cup of gluten-free flour. Along with 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/4 teaspoon of xanthan gum. And then we're just going to combine that until it forms a dough. I always start with a spoon, but then you'll find that you'll need to get your hands in there after a while. Mix until it forms a solid ball that's still slightly tacky, and then we're going to wrap that up and chill in the fridge. After that, preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius on bake. Dust a surface with a little bit of gluten-free flour. I've prepared my baking tray as I'm showing you here. Then take the chilled dough out and you want to roll that out until it's about 1/2 centimetre thick. Don't worry if you break it like me, you can just roll it again. Then you want to take a 4 centimeter in diameter crimped cookie cutter. And then I also found a massive one, so I decided I was also going to make a giant squiggle. Cut out as many as you can and bake for 10 minutes or until the biscuits are just turning gold. Here I am taking them out now. You'll see that they're just slightly golden around the edges. And here is the second batch along with my giant squiggle. While they cool, we're going to move on to the buttercream. Add 50 grams of slightly melted butter, to 1 cup of icing sugar, along with 1 tablespoon of golden syrup, and a few drops of orange food colouring. Whoa, I said a few drops. And then we're just going to mix that until it's all combined. I wanted to do this by hand, but it was still quite lumpy, so I ended up getting out the electric beater. Now we're going to take about 3/4 of the Hokey Pokey and break that into the bowl. And mix it again with an electric beater just to make those bits a little bit smaller. Break up the rest of the Hokey Pokey into small chunks. On top of the cooled biscuits, put a teaspoon of buttercream icing. And then, do the rest. And then you want to take the Hokey Pokey chunks and sprinkle them over the rest of the cookies. This will give the squiggles that classic bumpy shape. Pop these in the fridge while you melt the chocolate. We're going to place a glass bowl over a pot of hot water and add 250 grams of milk chocolate. We're also going to add half a tablespoon of coconut oil. This helps set the chocolate without tempering it. Once the chocolate is almost all melted, take it off the heat. Let it cool a bit before you start dipping. Take your chilled biscuit bases and dunk them into the chocolate, making sure to cover all sides evenly and scraping the excess off the bottom. And here's me dunking the massive squiggle. Chuck them back into the fridge until the chocolate sets. Now we're going to make the squiggle. Just like before, let's add a bowl on top of a pot of boiling water and add 100 grams of white chocolate. We'll also add half a tablespoon of coconut oil. Now white chocolate is a little bit hard to melt, so make sure you don't overheat it. Then we're going to add a few drops of orange food colouring. While the white chocolate slightly cools, we're going to set up a piping bag with a very thin nozzle. Right, here is quite honestly the best part of this process. Take the set biscuits out of the fridge and squiggle. I try to keep a continuous flow of squiggle just because it keeps it a little bit cleaner. Here's me squiggling the massive one. And then you're going to pop these back in the fridge to set for a final 30 minutes.
And here we have the final product. Excuse my chewing. So you've got the biscuit, honeycomb buttercream, the hokey pokey, chocolate layer, squiggle layer, and I promise you they taste exactly like the normal ones. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe please, and I will be making more shortly. I'm not going to eat it right now, but I'll take a video of the giant one when I do have some.